Welcome to today's Owl's Nest, everyone. My name is Ryan, and in today's episode, I have the distinct pleasure to sit down with a visionary, my guest, Anthony Clerby. We recently got together to throw down some truth about becoming what Anthony deems a sourcing hero and how that ideal supports the growth and success of his company, Una. We also discussed topics such as the integral role data plays in a company's sourcing strategy, how some sourcing challenges actually turn out as opportunities, and the kinds of traits Anthony looks for in sourcing professionals. I know you'll enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Big welcome to my guest for today's Owl's Nest podcast, Anthony Clerby. Anthony Clerby is the president and growth advocate of Una. He's an experienced investor and entrepreneur with a demonstrated history of executing and providing value in the procurement and supply chain industry. Anthony's particularly skilled in sales, marketing, strategy, leadership, and team building. He's a former college athlete with a bachelor's degree focused in economics and finance from McKendree University. I must say that one of the reasons I know I like Anthony is that he's a Kansas City Royals fan, and they've been nothing but playoff death to my beloved Blue Jays in the past.
Oh, boy.
Anthony, it's great to have you here for today's podcast, and welcome to the Owl's Nest.
I love it. Thanks, Ryan. Glad to be here, buddy. Yeah, it's a heck of an intro there.
Hey, man, I aim to please. So before we get going, please take a moment or two to talk about Una and what Una is and the value that you bring to your members.
Excellent. So simply put, Una is a group purchasing organization, what we like to call a group purchasing advisor. We help companies and certain healthcare entities save money by how they buy and source certain goods and services. Simple example, most of our focus is on indirect spend. It's just a fancy way of saying the universal expenses that most businesses are dealing with on a day-to-day, weekly, monthly, annual basis. So everything from office supplies to janitorial supplies to travel spend, when that picks back up, furniture and things of that nature. And so every day, our goal and our brand message is how can we as Una, as a core value-driven company, bring value, of course, but empower, what we like to say, empower our sourcing heroes. And that's the everyday practitioner who's trying to manage their KPIs and work with their CPO or work with their C-suite or just even their general sourcing team. And our goal is to how can we empower them? And that's the message that we want to get out there. And we believe GPOs, although a very simple concept and happy to jump into it more in further detail, are a great opportunity and a blended strategy to a business or any other organization of that nature of their overall procurement strategy.
I love it, man. It sounds like, it's you can tell that you have passion about what you do, but you can also tell that wasn't an elevator pitch. That wasn't scripted, which is fantastic.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, at the end of the day, we want to believe in what we're doing, and like anything else, it's nice to have, our product is the service, and it's a two-pronged approach. I won't go too long into it. I want to have some great back and forth with you here. Again, I'm thankful to be on here and chatting with your audience, and is that we believe not only the member, which we call our client, we call them a member, but our supplier partner, and we call them our partners, they both matter. There's not one more important than the other. And what's critical in this relationship when it comes to GPOs is making sure that we understand, we like to use language, make sure the GPO, and then there's a handful of competitors, across the globe, but mainly in America, that we know our place. GPO needs to know its place in the overall procurement structure. And with that in mind, servicing the member, and make sure we're servicing the supplier partner too. How do you make it a win for the partner? How do you make it a win for the member? And as the old adage says, help enough people get what they want and you'll get what you want. And ultimately, we think about that daily and take it very seriously. And there's a healthy tension between the member and the partner or the supplier partner, making sure that there's a winning formula. But we believe that if it's done right in full transparency, speed to service, speed to savings, it's a phenomenal opportunity to create that relationship. I'll use the buzzword or the overused synergy or symbiosis, if you will. And if we do that right, Una wins. And that's what we try to do each and every day.
Fantastic. No, that's great. We're looking at things. So we'll hop right into the questions, and then, like we said, we'll have some back and forth. But and I'm looking forward to seeing what your answers are to these inquiries. So, first question: data is an integral part of a community of a company's sourcing strategy. How do you see the advancement of data analytics and sourcing over the next 2 to 3 years?
Well, I believe it's probably one of the most significant areas to focus on for practitioners and sourcing heroes, as we say at Una. That's why I actually really like your product, and it's been fun to get to know some of your management and ownership. I think what you guys are doing at the Owl's Nest and your company and your product is a I think I think you guys are seeing it right and focusing on the SMBs. That can't work with the Oracles and the SAPs of the world. Not a knock against them; those are great companies. That's just a huge budget to attain. I would say, and they're very much data focused. So it's more data companies rather than spend analytics. So you're saying data analytics, and because I play a role and wear a hat in the supply chain and sourcing world, I lean more towards spend analytics. But you're saying it as far as in sourcing. So I think we're all saying the same things.
Absolutely.
The short answer is it's extremely critical. We find typically in our conversations that we're doing when we're talking to these practitioners, as we say again, I just love the term. I want to get it out there. Sourcing heroes. They just can't get their arms around data. They don't have clear line of sight on compliance. There isn't compliance. I mean, you may talk to a company or an organization that has 700 locations and there's no compliance. They let all 700 locations buy and source. There's no procurement strategy or enforcement at the top or central spend. And then the data, as you can imagine, is all over the place. And you just live in Excel or fragments of Excel. And we we gravitate to those opportunities, unfortunately, because we see a very reactive behavior by the market to say, all right, I'm going to put somebody in sourcing, or I'm going to invest a little bit more over there because it's such a mess. And so it creates an opportunity, but it's an extraordinary challenge. So the idea of data analytics or spend analytics and cleaning all that up, I just frankly, if you were to rephrase the question, what is going to be the number one priority in your opinion of a company's sourcing strategy, I would have responded with having a clear understanding of the metrics and a spend analytics tool or process that makes sense, enforced by compliance, supported by C-suite.
No, that's a great answer, and I think that along those lines, what I see in with the owl is that our data analytics solution, or whatever you're analyzing,
Sure.
using a dashboard like ours, it brings alignment. And not only it doesn't just bring alignment between departments, it brings alignment between your financial indicators, your performance indicators, and your process indicators, which often isn't really a viable choice because of the lack of insight and the lack of visibility into
Right.
to what the entire company is doing. Whereas if you have the right level of data visibility throughout your organization, you can see decisions that are made on one end, and then how it affects the other end.
Yeah. Data visibility, full transparency. I mean, you're nailing it, but you already know
Absolutely.
that. So
Yeah, beautiful. So, what are some sourcing challenges that you would actually consider as opportunities?
yeah, and maybe in some ways I might have already alluded to it, but I'll say what I find, and I think it kind of tags into, I think some other questions we'll probably review, but what we tend to see at Una is an exorbitant amount of suppliers that are used by an organization that are unnecessary.
Right.
So I see a challenge is, how do you manage all the supplier vendors? Again, we use the language partners, but let's just keep it a little bit more universal for the audience. How do you manage that? How do you get your hands around that? And it's a huge challenge. But what's nice about Una is kind of just toot our horn a little bit. I mean, that's really our job is, yes, speed to savings, speed to contract, but We try to go a step beyond that. So I think the opportunity is the consolidation,
Mhm.
which actually is one of my favorite kind of KPIs just for practitioners or sourcing heroes alone. I mean, how can you consolidate? How can you make it even more efficient? So if you can go down, whether you have a couple hundred suppliers or a couple thousand, can you knock that down 10, 20, 30%, and create more efficiencies that go well beyond just your procurement department? So I think those, it's simple, but vendor consolidation, I think, is an extraordinary opportunity. And there's a lot of different ways you can slice that onion, but that's what comes to mind.
100%. And I think that one of it's at previous experience and jobs that I've had, one of the things I try to do is sit here and determine what the overhead cost of cutting one purchase order is.
There you go.
And if you're cutting your supply base by 20%, imagine all the purchase orders that you are not cutting anymore,
Right.
right? And the opportunity cost accordingly
Extraordinary.
extraordinary. Absolutely. What could you be doing? What kinds of advancements could you be making if you had more time to give to all of the people involved in the parade of cutting a purchase order?
Right. And where else could your time be spent? I mean, you nailed it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Opportunity cost, and you could be focusing on more strategic conversations or strategic arrangements, with key suppliers that have the most impact. The Pareto principle, the 80-20, you can never get away from it. I think you nailed it.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've always looked at is, how many of your suppliers could actually take over the tasks that you've assigned to suppliers already. If you went to your 20% of your supply base of their key suppliers, and you said, listen, here are all the tasks I would love to offload that we currently give a purchase order a year to one supplier. If you just went and asked them, could you do it for us? It's amazing the amalgamation that could take place, I think.
Good word. Yeah. I mean, again, alignment, you never get what you don't ask for. And
Mhm.
I think it's, you know, I always use the adage too, like the mind's like a parachute. It doesn't work unless it's open. I think it's
Uh,
just getting your arms around that and making sure you have the right data to support the conversation. Buy-in from C-suite. I can't emphasize that enough.
mhm.
And I think you have what I would argue, a very optimistic approach, and a silver lining to identifying, okay, using language like you just structured that question. Yes, it's a challenge, but really what it is an opportunity, and bridging that gap. And it's key in negotiation and building these relationships with the right vendors and suppliers. And we want to make sure we never forget that, not only in our business, but I would argue in the marketplace abroad.
Absolutely. So you already touched on one of your favorite sourcing KPIs, but do you have other favorites that you look at on an everyday basis and think, okay, this is how I'm measuring the performance of not only my members but also my partners and Una itself.
So I'll give you two answers if that's all right. I love it's simple in the this kind of the down and dirty of a GPO is, it's again, the GPO has to know its place. We have billions in buying power, that billions in buying power through thousands of contracts or supplier contracts that we have. And our whole goal is how can we get immediate savings? So I love the savings number for the member, and it's immediate, speed to contract, whether it's the incumbent supplier or there's a conversion, which again creates different conversations. But then the second fold, or the second tier of that, is we sometimes come at it from a different angle, and we try to really partner with our supplier partners and say, okay, what's a win for you? And what markets are you trying to serve currently? And what additional value can you bring? Like you just mentioned, Ryan, where can it go beyond like how you're dealing with purchase orders? What other areas are there consolidations? So we try to identify specifically with the supplier partner, what's a win for you? And so simply put, we like to increase a market share that makes sense for Una. We have either in our membership base or that we can tackle with that supplier partner. We think that way as a GPO So we don't want to it's not just about the member. Certainly they matter and there's value. And it's not just about the supplier partner. We go with, again, I'm going to use my isms over here, the Una isms, the simple verse of just, or the language of you matter and so do I. And I think it's so critical in negotiation and pulling together, whether it be a current incumbent opportunity with a member and a supplier partner. But ultimately, go back to your question. Love to see speed to savings, literally the time frame, but more so, what is that? On average, we're saving our customers, our members, if you will, our membership, a part of this universe. Just want to throw it out there. It's kind of a fun that's brand behind this. I know you guys are doing it too, which is great.
Love
But when you join the universe partner, but really in the membership base, a member, you should on average be seeing savings anywhere from 10 to 20%, somewhere upwards of 20%, depending on how you've been buying, what partner you're looking at, what supplier partner you're working with, amount of spend. There's a myriad of variables that would contribute to that. But those are the things that we're thinking about constantly, and day in and day out.
Beautiful. And I love the fact that you said that, they matter, but so do you, because
Right.
ultimately
The
that's
supplier partner, right? So not only does the member matter, but so does the supplier partner. And it gets missed in our space, not to interrupt you. And typically, unfortunately, what we're starting to see more of, and there's consolidation in this, I'll say, category or more marketplace for GPOs. And that's very common, but they don't, if I could just be a little bit real, it's there's kind of positioning their suppliers as subservient. I don't even like the word supplier. I like partner, because you want it. You need alignment, and it has to be real. It can't just be, well, I'm just collecting fees from you, or I'm just collecting fees from your member. One, that's not how Una does life, and it's a short-term strategy. It's free to be a member at Una, and we value both lanes. No one is more important than the other. And there's a way to make a relationship work. And if you're not thinking long term, what are we doing?
right. No, and what I like about your strategy is that you incorporate that aspect of self-awareness in too, because your members need to be happy, your supply base needs to be happy, but also you as the leader of Una needs to be happy. And if you try to incorporate your happiness later, that causes a blip, that causes a distinctive change in operations.
Right.
Whereas if you incorporate that from the start, and you say, okay, this is a triad. This is there's three pillars to this relationship. There's Una, there's the member, and then there's a supplier. Then that allows for a consistent win for all three, and no one's trying to get theirs later.
And you know what? I keep trying to jump in. You're saying good stuff. Thank you. And that's well summarized. I'll give you the key to what makes this work. And there's another aspect that's not probably, that is the most important, that makes it work at Una. And I haven't mentioned it. Can you guess it?
People,
Absolutely. It's our team
absolutely
members. And we actually have a stronger focus. They take the cake, and they get to eat they get the cherry on top. They get it all. And
beautiful.
we have such a focus as a core value driven company, not perfect. We're performance over perfection. And we say, look, you have to have values and deliver results. You can't deliver results and not have values. So basically, you don't get to be a prick or a jerk and be at Una. It's not how it works.
Love it.
It's not a club. Okay, you also have to get results. They work together. It's hand in hand. And so we have such a focus on our team and our people that we know, and this is not something that I came up with or that even Una as an organization, we want to focus on our people, train them, take care of them, do what we say we're going to do, simple integrity, consistency, and that reverberates over to our members and our supplier partners. And
Amazing.
that's what it means to be a part of the Universe.
Yeah. Well, culture beats strategy, right?
Always.
Always. Fantastic. Last question. When you interact with people in your industry, what are three characteristics that you look for in a sourcing professional?
So again, we call them sourcing heroes over at Una, but a practitioner, if you will.
Yes.
We're interacting with them daily, as I've stated, and the three things that stand out. I've already mentioned one is, look, and I don't think this is unique to Una at all. I don't care how big the organization is. Typically, any kind of, as we call them, members, but we'll just say customer for universal purposes. If they're paying you money, there's obviously a huge responsibility for you to continue to bring value, whether you have whatever the contractual obligations are. So meet that, ideally exceed those expectations. But what I'll get to my point is, you want to make sure, and we've found this in the data, that typically the members that we bring the most value to and have the best relationship with have an alignment of values. So core values when it comes to hiring, and when we're interacting with companies and who are run by people, what is the core value alignment? How do we interact? What is the patience level like? What is the understanding? We use language at Una like, are you making room for my thoughts? Like, we try to, can we put points or puzzle pieces on the table to have interaction? Is there a level of compromise, or is it my way is the highway? So I look for core values when we're interacting with organizations that we want to bring into the Una family or the universe. The second piece, and then followed by the third, I think there's an inherent understanding that's critical. Having an open mind, as I've mentioned. So there's an education piece that typically takes place in this current environment, of course, with COVID. And the reality is it's a global pandemic. Cost cutting and the concept of group purchasing, in my professional opinion, obviously it's biased, has never been more prevalent or more important. Again, it's a part of the overall strategy. So we like to find people that have good core values, that want to work with us, that there's alignment there. They're open-minded to where a GPO can fit. And this is the hard one. They all play off each other of dominoes, but you can really tell that they have the ability to impact change. And what I mean by that is, will they take our advice, or will they actually make the change? If maybe it's a change in supplier, maybe it's a change in strategy, maybe it's a change in approach, maybe it's all. And I think they all cascade and play off one another. But those are the three things that come to mind with a lot of context around it. And frankly, it goes back to it, I mean, which could be, you could make it fanciful, if that's a word, if you will, of people just want to do business that they like. And you're not always going to like the member or the supplier partner, but at the end of the day, it's amazing. You build enough of a brand, and I hope, as your audience, I'm sure is a mixed bag between practitioners and professionals of all shapes and sizes. If there's one thing I can say is, I think it's a blanketed statement, but I'm comfortable to say it again. People want to do business with people that they like. And again, the goal is that we don't all become best friends and go on vacation together. But gosh, it sure does help to do business with people that you like, that you can trust. And if I said a fourth one as a bonus, which I think aligns with core values, is there trust? Yep. And does it align with, are you doing what you're saying you're doing? But, I could go on and on about how we're interacting with the type of, practitioner or sourcing hero, what it means for us to bring in a supplier partner that's going to serve that sourcing hero, and the characteristics. And you find out pretty quickly, first impressions and then follow through. These are all critical elements to try to put, a program in place that fits within the overall structure of an organization, whether it's a private business or healthcare.
Absolutely. No, that's great. And I think you've done a great job throughout this conversation of encapsulating what it means to be associated with Una. And that's one of the toughest things to put forth a lot of times is how do you put forth, what the common thread at Una is. And I love the fact that you just encapsulated that in your last statement.
Well, let's go deeper, Ryan. You said it best. Like, what about time spent elsewhere if you're not producing that PO? And we want to go a step beyond that. What does it mean to experience 10 to 20% in savings as an organization? Does that mean you can hire another person? How can you invest back in your business? If it's a PE or a PEG, a private equity group, yep. Is there a higher EBITDA so you get a maximize on something on your return? what does that mean for ownership? What does that mean for people that have ownership, or how that structure is C-suite? So there's reverberating positive impact that we want to try to extend and go deep into and understand, like you've mentioned, of it goes well beyond of speed to savings and speed to contract. All of that's critical, but it's the why behind it. And it's hard not to have, I think, just because I've been in it, I'm doing it, and our team is doing it. And we want our members to see it, feel it consistently, not just one day, that we are passionate about what we're doing and we're excited about it. And we want to continue to educate the community in the marketplace about the value of a GPO, that as long as you mentioned it, self-awareness stays in our lane, I should say, gosh, it's a phenomenal opportunity for everybody who's at the table.
It sure is, because what you're also doing is you are allowing for lower interruption of performance and production, because often in today's days of COVID, there will have to be some kind of trimming done to a company's roster. But
Yep.
if you can enable them to continue to have more consistency in what they produce, even at a lower employee level, and that's a fantastic benefit to that company. And
So
you're doing it in a way that's hearty and healthy, as opposed to the cold, the employee's a number.
yeah, no, that's not how we do business, and we don't want to do business with folks that think that way.
I love
Period.
it. Beautiful. Anyway, Anthony, it's been a fantastic conversation, and I offer my distinct thanks to you for being with me today.
Likewise.
And it absolutely, I hope you come back again sometime. And what I'll do is I look forward to kind of butting you up against somebody else in the podcast,
Okay.
having that kind of back and forth
Be
interaction.
great. Challenge accepted. Hey, before we go, what is the
Yeah.
owl's nest? What does that mean? Is it just having a high view? I'd love to hear what's the
I,
meaning of that.
Listen, I joke about the owl's nest being my house, but in essence, the owl's nest is anyone who is associated with the Owl Solutions, which is obviously what we do,
Awesome.
but anyone who's positively impacting the Owl Solutions. We don't want to be associated with people who bring negativity or don't bring a high level of understanding that data is the next frontier, so to speak. And you did a great job of encapsulating that. What we want to do is we want to associate with absolute rock stars, and we want people to accept the owl, the true owl, which is our product, into their business, and kind of have that take a hold of what their current state is, encapsulate the current state, visualize that current state, and then from there they can make wicked decisions, and they can kind of get on that digital evolution that I keep referring to in every single LinkedIn post that I've ever made. I think involves the words digital evolution at some point.
Love it. It's good.
Yeah, no, it's good. I like the fact there's definite threads of commonality between our two companies, and
There
that's why
It's
I look forward to exploring more soon.
it's the owl's nest in the universe.
That's right.
Right.
That's like the mega powers.
Come on.
All right, man. All right, Anthony. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to talking to you again sometime soon.
Likewise. Thank you, Ryan.
All right. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
What a great chat. Unbelievably, Anthony brings that same level of energy and enthusiasm to Una on a daily basis, which can only help to set him and his team up for great things moving forward. Massive appreciation to Anthony Cleary for joining me today, and big thanks to you for listening. Have a great day, and I hope you come back to join us in the Owl's Nest. Cheers.